Welcome, spooky ones. We are back. It is part 4 of our theme park review mini-series stream thing. And this episode is my recent trip to Disney World. So, I was never... okay, I was going to say I was never the biggest fan of Disney, but that's a lie. I was a big fan growing up, went there all the time because my folks had like a vacation club thing before it got like extremely expensively out of hand, and then we quit it out. But recently, my folks managed to find a special sort of version where, or at least a deal. They found a deal where we could sort of we use vacation club points from other people. So that ended up working fair enough, and we ended up staying a few nights at 2 different resorts because it was 2 different like point deals. And we ended up staying for a few nights at the Polynesian Resort and for a few nights at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. I prefer the former to the latter, and I'll explain why. Polynesian I just think is like has more interesting theming. I mean, that may be my bias, but this whole South Pacific sort of thing with all the buildings being named after different like Hawaiian, or not, sorry, not just Hawaii, but like all sorts of Pacific islands, that's pretty cool. And we got to do something I had never done before, which was the Trader Sam's, I believe. It's a special bar. Here, let me show you. This Trader Sam's bar thing, it's just an interesting place to get drinks, and they have like theming for it, where someone orders like the submarine drink, where it's like served in an Nautilus submarine. They'll have like the lights go blue and everything, and everyone will be asked to like pretend to swim around the room, and they'll have like submarine diving sounds and stuff. And here they'll have like the volcano erupt if you get the volcano dish, and all these fancy little effects. So it's like a little interactive mini chill bar place that has a long line to get into. But it was nice. I ended up getting like, I think a forgot if it was rum. I think it was like a rum pineapple slush drink, which ended up being pretty much just like a rum pineapple milkshake, and it was pretty good. Like everyone, I think I got the best deal because all like the other drinks that my family got, they weren't as good. So I enjoyed what I had, and it lasted for a while. So I'm glad I went there. But and the food there was all right. We did like a buffet there for breakfast one time, and they had some interesting choices of food, but staff and service there was really nice. And then if you go on to the Animal Kingdom, there was just some other like Animal Kingdom was alright. Again, if you like looking at the animals, they're there. We got one of the cheaper rooms that looks at the pool instead of the animals, but and I just prefer the Polynesian. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on the resorts, but we did go to like a special restaurant. I think it was like Sana or something, but they had like a special Indian-inspired like bread service thing where it was like 9 different dips and a bunch of different like naan and bread types that you could do, and that was interesting enough. Some of it was weird to try, but the main thing was the parks themselves, because the main reason we went was for my sister. She really wanted to go to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party or whatever it's called, and so we did that. And even though it's like a separate ticketed event, thanks Chapek, but you know, I had a counter for the amount of times I said thanks Chapek, you know, because that's the name of their CEO, and his nickname isn't Bob Chapek for nothing, so. I counted, I think, 20 different times I said thanks, Chapek, in like reaction to prices or service or things like that. So yeah, I think Disney's kind of going down the drain in terms of their image. If you want more information, look up Poseidon Entertainment. He has a ton of great videos on why Disney's in decline. But anyways, I just want to talk about my experience there. We did the Not So Scary Halloween Party thing. She dressed up as Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, and some of the other folks, like one of my parents wore like a shirt for the dog that was like Zero or something, like the ghost dog, and I wore one with like the Oogie Boogie hat on it. And let me review some of the stuff that happened with the Halloween party that we did. So first up would be the overlay, or well, you could say overlay, for Space Mountain. So Space Mountain, they basically turned off all the lights, not like every single light in there, and they put like a spooky sort of like suspenseful music track on. The music was okay, but like going on that ride with absolutely zero light is insane. Like I really recommend it. It was one of the coolest things I did that night. And the line wasn't very long at all either time because it's separate ticketed, not as much capacity in the park, so I definitely would recommend that. And I think it's a cool little thing they do for the event. Going on to the next one, they had a parade. Of course, this is like one of the main things they have. And we did the first parade, which is good because apparently a lot of the performers did not do much in the second parade of the night. Like, there was one part of the parade where they had people with shovels making sparks and everything, like dragging them along the ground. But you could tell the shovels they had were way too short because they kept having to bend down with their back, and you could tell it wasn't comfortable for them. And I noticed all the performers were sweating their asses off. It was a really hot night, and they were just putting in such a good effort. Like, I am really respectful of the performers there because of how much like effort and literal sweat they have to pour through to get through those nights and do their performances that are often high energy. And it seems like a lot of them ran out of steam for the second parade, and I don't blame them. But we were there for the first. We got to see a lot of the cool stuff they had. First half of the parade is the best part because then they have like a bunch of different floats for like Haunted Mansion and things like that. Like here's the float for the Haunted Mansion, and all these other interesting things they had. But like they had other things, like they had one section that was just for Clarabelle, like the one character, the female character that was similar to Goofy that no one remembers. That just came out of nowhere, which is weird because like no one remembers that character. They had just some weird choices for it. So we stayed for the first half of the parade, but then we're like, we'll do something else now. There was also the fireworks show. We were trying to run to a different thing while the fireworks show was going on, but I looked it up later. It kind of over relies too much on projections, but and the story just like it has a story, but it's just like Mickey and the gang go trick or treating in a spooky house, and it's just I don't know, not my favorite part of the night. Instead, they had a Hocus Pocus stage show, like a Hocus Pocus movie themed stage show where they had a bunch of Disney villains go and interact with them and do some songs and stuff. Like they had Friends on the Other Side and the Oogie Boogie one, that sort of thing. That was a cool show. My sister really loved Hocus Pocus too, so that's another reason why we went. And the people who played the three witch sisters in that show did a pretty good job. So I like the stage show more than the fireworks. And another thing we tried to do is we heard they were going to have some enhancements for Haunted Mansion. And it turns out, I can't get a good picture, so I'm just using this picture as a placeholder. Turns out all they didn't change anything inside Haunted Mansion because we rode it before and during the event, and nothing changed inside. The only thing that changed was they had two actors that looked like a butler and a mistress, like two ghost zombie actors things, just talking to people in the queue. Like they were sitting on a hill and part of the queue line and just interacting with people, and that was it. Once you got inside the building, the ride was exactly the same. So kind of disappointing. I thought they would try to do an overlay because I know there's the other overlay in the other park where they have the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, but I guess Orlando doesn't get that. So, oh well, kind of a letdown. However, we ended the night on a really good note. Right before the park closed, we saw the Cadaver Dance. That's basically, they had like Dapper Dan performers in the day, where it's basically a barbershop quartet, but instead they have the barbershop quartet themed after like dead Western people. So we saw this show above the Country Bear Jamboree. Speaking of which, my sister rode Country Bear Jamboree for the first time, and it's me for the first time in like more than a decade because we just always pass by it, and wondering why we didn't ride it or watch Country Bear Jamboree. There's a good reason. It's just, oh my god, I can't even describe it. It's just pregame it or do it on a trip. I don't know. That's just whew. Country Bear. That's something else. Anyways, we really enjoyed this performance. The performers for the barbershop quartet here did a really good job, and they also had Country Bear Jamboree, like people walking around in those costumes and interacting with the crowd, like sometimes distracting them from the performance, which is weird, but oh well. Um, like one of them tapped on my sister's shoulder and then pointed up at the performers, like, "Yeah, yeah, we're watching them. They're good. I don't know why you're." I don't know. It was just weird, but anyways, yeah, that was one of the highlights of the night because these are some talented people here who work on that sort of thing and do that performance. So I did enjoy that. And then the next day, later on for the second stay, I hopped over to Epcot because I hadn't ridden Guardians of the Galaxy yet. I wanted to ride Cosmic Rewind. And honestly, process, I just hate what they're doing now with every time they open a new ride. They did it for Rise of the Resistance, they're doing it now, where, again, the virtual queue. Like, really? You're making people get up at 7 a.m. just to get a virtual queue? Like, I get some people get early starts anyway, but, like, I don't know. They don't need to do that. They, it's just so much hassle. You have to, again, Poseidon Entertainment on YouTube makes these points better than I can, but it's just, you can't do anything spontaneously at Disney now. It has to all be through the app. You have to pre-plan every aspect, reserve things weeks in advance, even like fast passes, even if you want to buy that, because there's like 3 different types of fast passes, and ones are add-ons of the others, and there's like individual lightning lane and then general lightning lane and all this bullshit. But it's just, I don't know. Like, I think Universal may overtake Disney if Disney keeps making the guest experience worse like this. So hopefully Disney will notice the new Park Universal's building and their guest service aspects, and that'll light a fire under their arses, and Disney will actually start putting in more effort in the future. So, but anyways, aside from that rant, the ride itself, it's an indoor coaster, and I managed to get our virtual queues, and we went in, and it was kind of a long wait. The queue was themed around like the planet from Guardians of the Galaxy, where the Xandar or whatever, like this other civilization that's like, oh, we're so in harmony with everything. Look, we want to show off to Earth how in harmony we are with our planet. Blah 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 blah, whatever. And then they don't. I like that they kind of breeze through the villain, because like once you get teleported into this chamber, they have a cool like effect, kind of like the Poseidon's Fury thing in Universal, where one of the walls, like, it cuts to black, and then one of the walls in front of you raises up, revealing a much bigger room, making it look like you teleported or something. So you do that, and then this giant, like, space villain celestial person, I had to look it up, because, like, it's not explained at all on the ride. There's, like, this big guy shows up, steals whatever generator the Xandarian people have or whatever, and then screws off into a portal to try to undo time or something, and then you go fight him, I guess, with the Guardians, even though you just, like, spin around on your little shuttle ship right here the whole time. Again, they kind of rush through the setup and story for the ride, which I prefer them doing that to, like, overly trying to explain it. There's probably some good reason, but again, most people don't care, they just want to ride the ride. So, you get on the ride itself, and of course it picks from, like, one of a certain amount of classic rock and roll or, like, 80s sort of songs on a playlist. I think I got the one I got was like "And I Ran" or whatever that song was called, and it was good. But ride itself, ride itself is good. Like, I didn't know what to think going in, but yeah, I'm biased against indoor coasters. They made it work. It's not too short, which is my biggest concern. I'm like, what if this is only as long as Rock and Roller Coaster? Because if you think about it, Rock and Roller Coaster is only um like what, a minute something long. It's so short, and it's just kind of boring, or at least uncreative. But the ride itself, but this ride, the spinning aspect is very good. I did a video about Busch Gardens where I talked about Cobra's Curse and the spinning there. Just that ride spins, but it just doesn't, like, it's gravity based, and as a result, you barely spin at all, and they just underuse the spinning aspect. However, this ride uses it properly. It's not free spin. It spins specifically to have you face certain parts of the scene and the show, which works in its favor. That way they can use the walls of the ride. And Disney has mastered matching the speed of a projection on a screen or a wall with the speed of the coaster, so it looks like you're just watching the action as you're going along. They made it look good. and they use the turning of the ride both for thrills and for making you look in the right direction to see the show scenes. That way, they don't have to slow the coaster down to do show scenes, which is something Universal hasn't done yet. Universal, they had their story coaster with the Hagrid's coaster or whatever, but that one, to see the show scene of Hagrid and the Beast or whatever inside his hut or classroom, they have to slow the train down and basically just have you go like really slowly through the hut and then they speed you back up. But no, Disney, they can tell a story and have a coaster at the same time. So I think that's good on them. And like they have a big like moment where you shoot backwards with a big bang chasing in front of you. And again, it sucks that they don't disguise the sides of it better. Like they don't have fake stars as lights on the bottom of some places, or they're not very convincing because then you can see the track and you can like see where the corners of the walls and it kind of breaks the illusion a little bit. So I wish they tried to disguise it better with like curving the corners of the walls or something. But they really did do a good job with the theming. They tried to. Just small nitpicks that I'm pointing out. So it's a great ride. I definitely want to go on it again. I just don't have to get a virtual queue for it. Because virtual queue only really has a good chance of doing it when you're staying at a resort, which I was that time, but now that I'm back in Orlando but I'm not in a resort, it's going to be a lot harder. So I don't know how they're going to do that. And I hope I get to ride that ride again, but we'll see how the virtual queue works. So I will say this ride really will help Epcot because with half of Epcot being under construction walls right now, the park just hasn't been looking too hot. And there aren't enough rides. That's another problem with Disney. There aren't enough capacity-eating rides. It's worse with Hollywood Studios, but it's still a thing in Epcot. And I'm glad this ride exists. The virtual queue kind of hampers its ability to absorb crowds, but once they take it off virtual queue, like they did with Star Wars or Ratatouille or whatever, both this ride and Ratatouille will be a good ways to add to the park because the park was lacking in rides beforehand. Like, besides the rides in, like, the handful in World Showcase and then the other ones next to each other in Future World, there's a lack of rides before those two came in. So, and especially with a coaster, they were lacking a good coaster. So now with this really good, coaster addition to Epcot, I think that's going to go a long way to helping them with whatever other expansion plans they have once they finally get off the ground, if Chapek will get off his ass and actually, move things along. So it's not COVID anymore. You can't use COVID as an excuse anymore. We're back to normal. Just move your production schedules back to normal. Universal's been building their new park the whole time. So instead of canceling your building plans, start putting them back in again, Disney, okay? Another weird thing with Epcot, though, is it was, I think, now the start of the Food and Wine Festival, or at least it had been going on while I was there. And I noticed, like, they really have extended all the festivals. Epcot is just forever festivals now. It's either the Flower and Garden or the Food and Wine. And there's no break in between them. It's just always one or the other, because they want money. And then they've been shrinking the portions slowly and increasing the prices of all the festival stuff. And it's just lost the charm. Like before, it's like, oh, we should go during this time while they have this festival and see all the neat stuff they have. But now they're having these forever festivals, so they need more ingredients, so it's lesser quality ingredients and all this other BS. And people have to stand around waiting in lines to get these tiny portions of food with nowhere to sit to eat them, and it's just, I don't know. It's lost the charm that it used to have. I think having these festivals go on year-round and having no breaks in between them, or very little breaks in between them, are just, I don't know, they take something away from it. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's just a gut feeling. Like, you can tell they care more about the results of the festival rather than the actual, atmosphere and, the sentimental parts of the festivals that they're meant to celebrate. It's less of a festival and more of a selling opportunity, if you get what I mean. But, I mean, that's just a general thing that's been happening with Disney. So, they're on a decline, but the new coaster is a good addition. So, and again, usually I'm against adding IP like tons of IP-based rides and parks, but this time they wove it well enough. Again, I think it's dumb that they don't set up the villain at all, or they don't make the stakes clear, or like they kind of do, saying, "Oh, they'll erase rock and roll," or like the world or whatever. But like, there's just no setup, no hinting. It's just, "Oh, here's the bad guy. He's here in front of you now. You better go stop him." I don't know. It's just a bunch of dumb ranting. So aside from that, that's pretty much all I have to say about the time I spent at Disney recently. So I don't know if I'll renew my pass, because I have a pass, but I don't know if I'm going to renew it, to be honest with you. Because it looks like Tron is still well under construction, and I don't know when that Tron coaster is going to come out, so we'll see what happens. Apart from that, that's been my Part 4 review. Part 5 will come out soon enough, will be about Six Flags, so I will see you in that